It's the night of January 6, 2021, and I'm angry. The news is that a protester on Capitol Hill, within the Capitol building itself, died of her injuries. She was shot once by Capitol Police. And I'm angry. Why is it that Republican protesters are greeted with drawn guns and greeted with a shot fired? And yet, in 2011, 1,000 Democrat protesters stormed the Wisconsin State Capitol Rotunda. They broke through doors and pushed their way past armed police, and they occupied the people's capital of Wisconsin for a week. Nobody drew guns. Nobody shot anyone. This makes me angry. Is there one set of laws for Republican protesters and another set of laws for Democrat protesters? No, that is not the purpose of my video. My goal is unity and facts. We as a nation have to come together in unity. Right now, there's probably 10,000 news agencies screaming that mad dictator Trump, the ultimate Hitler, the ultimate Nazi, the ultimate supremacist, caused all of this because he's such a big, mean person. And this is identical to the reporting that Hollywood and the news media have done on President Trump and his supporters for the past 4 years. I want to offer something different, even if I have to be the sole lone voice of opposition to the media narrative. That's what I want to do here. So I wanted to go into the facts and also strive for unity over the events in Washington, D.C., January 6, 2021. On January 26, 2021, President Trump spoke at the Save America rally at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., as the House and Senate met in the Capitol building to commence the certification of electors in the 2020 election. A portion of that rally audience marched there to peaceably protest the election proceedings. After a certain point, some individuals stormed the Capitol building and occupied the Capitol Rotunda, the Senate chamber, and some offices, including that of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. During the confusion, it appears a protester was shot and killed by Capitol Police. It is my intent here with this video to investigate and show the actions of the Trump supporters in and around Capitol Hill from that day. So I apologize that this production is rushed due to the pressing nature of these real-time events. My presentation may not be up to my usual standards. We'll start with the following shocking examples of violence carried out by seditious and unpatriotic Trump supporters in Washington, D.C. Oh, whoops, that's from Minneapolis 2020, Kenosha 2020, Atlanta 2020, Dallas 2020, Richmond 2020, New York City 2020, Seattle 2020, Portland 2020, Georgia 2020, and Chicago 2020. Wow, look at that. Democrat mobs viciously attacking and trying to kill police officers. No media outrage, no calls for revenge by the Democratic Party against these protesters viciously beating and attacking police officers, at least when it's done by Democrat protesters. I apologize for all of that. Instead of showing violent footage of Trump supporters from 2021, I was showing scenes from 2020 riots by Democrat-led, Democrat-approved, and Democrat-sanctioned mobs who carried out violence, looting, arson, assault, murder, and the pulling down of statues while expressing themselves. The Democratic Party did nothing. Worse, they ordered police and fire departments to stand down and permit the violence, looting, and arson to continue, all through 2020, and often against minority-owned businesses. In many instances, Democrat officials at the local and state level waited until the rioting and arson had gone on for days before calling for the National Guard, whom the president can only deploy if asked by the states. Vice presidential candidate and current Vice President-elect Kamala Harris actually offered bail money for the rioters violently burning and looting and destroying their own neighborhoods. Perhaps it might help to start over. Let's watch the video of President Trump supposedly inciting people at the Save America rally to riot and storm the Capitol building. Or at least that's what the media narrative was instantly framed to be. Here is President Trump inciting sedition and insurrection to a large chaotic crowd.
Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I am outraged. Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Oh no, I'm sorry. That was Madonna calling for the White House to be blown up on January 27th, 2017. She was speaking to a packed audience protesting the newly inaugurated President Trump, and it was considered wonderful protest to say she wanted to blow up the White House with the Trump family presumably in it. And she was considered a hero of free speech for saying this. Alright, here's his actual comments. President Trump speaking at the Save America rally, Washington, D.C., January 6, 2021.
It would be really great if we could be covered fairly by the media. The media is the biggest problem we have as far as I'm concerned. Single biggest problem. The fake news and the big tech.
Okay, so Donald Trump didn't single out Capitol Hill, Congress, or the Democrats in Congress as his biggest enemy. He stated the news media was the biggest enemy.
I just spoke to Mike. I said, Mike, that doesn't take courage. What takes courage is to do nothing. That takes courage. And then we're stuck with a president who lost the election by a lot. And we have to live with that for 4 more years. We're just not going to let that happen. Many of you have traveled from all across the nation to be here, and I want to thank you for the extraordinary love. That's what it is. There's never been a movement like this, ever, ever.
So, Trump stated we're not going to let that happen. And the movement is based on love. You could construe that. Yes, you could. You could construe that as Trump inciting people to riot. But I remember Democrats trying everything in their power to shut down our country's electoral process in 2000 and 2016 when they didn't get the results they wanted.
We must stop the steal, and then we must ensure that such outrageous election fraud never happens again, can never be allowed to happen again. But we're going forward. We'll take care of going forward. We got to take care of going back. Don't let them talk. Okay, well, we promise. I've had a lot of people. Sir, you're at 96% for 4 years. I said, I'm not interested right now. I'm interested in right there. With your help, we will finally pass powerful requirements for voter ID.
Well, that's strange. That's very odd. This does not sound like an incitement to riot. Trump is demanding that the crowd has to show their photo ID.
We will ban ballot harvesting and prohibit the use of unsecured drop boxes to commit rampant fraud. These drop boxes are fraudulent. Therefore, they disappear, and then all of a sudden they show up. It's
Wow, no sedition here.
fraudulent. We will stop the practice of universal unsolicited mail-in balloting. We will clean up the voter rolls that ensure that every single person who casts a vote is a citizen of our country, a resident of the state in which they vote, and their vote is cast in a lawful and honest manner.
Doesn't sound like a call to insurrection there.
As this enormous crowd shows, we have truth and justice on our side. We have a deep and enduring love for America in our hearts. We love our country. We have overwhelming pride in this great country, and we have it deep in our souls. Together we are determined to defend and preserve government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Okay, now that's a typical crowd line for Trump. Let's skip ahead to his big windup here. Here's the part that could be interpreted badly.
And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Our exciting adventures and boldest endeavors have not yet begun. My fellow Americans, for our movement, for our children, and for our beloved country. And I say this, despite all that's happened, the best is yet to come. So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol, and we're going to try and give. The Democrats are hopeless. They're never voting for anything. Not even one vote. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you.
So that's President Trump wrapping up his call to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. It would seem Donald Trump simply advised the crowd on their First Amendment rights. Amendment 1 to the Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That last portion there sounds like exactly what pro-Trump marchers did on January 6, 2021. So it could be argued that when Mike Pence refused the president's instruction to fight the certification of the 2020 presidential election, Mike Pence caused the storming of Capitol Hill, not the president. Interesting. So no one was going to march into the Capitol building until they heard Pence went along with Biden's certification. Now we have footage here of peaceful Trump supporters protesting along Pennsylvania Avenue. Let's hear what Joe Biden said later in the day about the right to peaceably assemble.
At this hour, our democracy is under unprecedented assault. Unlike anything.
He didn't say this for any of the riots, arson, looting, and violence by Democrat-sanctioned protests in 2020.
The public servants who work at the heart of our republic. An assault on the rule of law like few times we've ever seen it. An assault on the most sacred of American undertakings, the doing of the people's business. Let me be very clear. The scenes of chaos at the Capitol do not reflect a true America, do not represent who we are.
You didn't condemn the George Floyd riots, President-elect Biden. Why not?
What we're seeing are a small number of extremists dedicated to lawlessness. This is not dissent.
Did you say that when Democrats stormed the Wisconsin Capitol Rotunda in 2011? And is Biden right? Again, let's read the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. There's no qualifier in that amendment that you have to petition the government for a redress of grievances via email or smoke signal or telegram. You can redress those grievances in person in the Publix building on Capitol Hill.
The words of a president can inspire. At their worst, they can incite.
So, did you feel the same when, after the George Floyd riots were burning and destroying everything, President Obama said that we must hold the powerful accountable?
Therefore, I call on President Trump to go on national television now to fulfill his oath and defend the Constitution and demand an end to this siege.
Freedom of speech and the freedom to petition the government for a redress of grievances are in the Constitution, Joe. It's in the Bill of Rights.
To storm the Capitol, to smash windows.
Why didn't you protest Antifa and BLM smashing windows and defacing the church down the street from the White House? You approved of that in 2020?
To occupy offices, the floor of the United States Senate, rummaging through desks.
But it's okay for Democrat activists to occupy state and government offices in Minneapolis and Seattle.
On the Capitol, on the House of Representatives, threatening the safety of duly elected officials. It's not.
At the final night of the RNC 2020 convention at the White House, the D.C. mayor ordered the D.C. police to be pulled back so that Democrat mobs could violently attack people exiting the White House. This included Senator Rand Paul and his wife. Where was Biden in the summer of 2020 condemning this?
In this god-awful display today.
It's only god-awful to Joe Biden if Republicans are protesting, if Trump supporters are protesting. He never once described a single murderous riot of 2020 where protesters were looting, committing arson, pulling down statues as god-awful.
So President Trump, step up. May God bless America. May God protect our troops and all those folks at the Capitol who are trying to preserve order.
That's strange. Biden condemns this protest by Trump supporters in 2021. Yet he was silent at the violence, looting, and arson by Democrat supporters in 2020. Yes. Another switch is his respect for the police. In 2021, Biden gives his thanks and support for the military and law enforcement deployed to protect Capitol Hill in 2021. But in August 2020, Biden delivered a very different message about the police in a speech in Pittsburgh.
This violence we've seen again and again and again of unwarranted police shooting, excessive force, 7 bullets in the back of Jacob Blake, knee on the neck of George Floyd, killing of Breonna Taylor in her own apartment, violence of extremists and opportunists, right-wing militias. You know, he may believe mouthing the words law and order makes him strong, but his failure to call on his own supporters to stop acting as an armed militia in this country shows how weak he is. Crises under Donald Trump have kept multiplying. COVID, economic devastation, unwarranted police violence, emboldened white nationalists, a reckoning on race. Do I look like a radical socialist with a soft spot for rioters? Really? I want a safe America, safe from COVID, safe from crime and looting, safe from racially motivated violence, safe from bad cops. I look at this violence and I see lives and communities and the dreams of small businesses being destroyed and the opportunity for real progress on the issues of race and police reform and justice being put to the test. Because Donald Trump adds fuel to every fire. Because he refuses to even acknowledge that there's a racial justice problem in America. Because he won't stand up to any form of violence. He's got no problem with right-wing militia, white supremacists, and vigilantes with assault weapons, often better armed than the police, often in the middle of the violence at the protesters and aiming it there. And because tens of millions of Americans simply don't trust this president to respect their rights, to hear their concerns, or to protect them.
So President-elect Biden does not have a consistent message of supporting law enforcement without reservation, unless it's to be deployed against Trump supporters. Then he has an active interest in law and order, which he ridiculed President Trump over last year. Fox News had as their coverage graphic, Washington, D.C. riots as their title, for the actions of Republican Trump supporters on that night. Yet if we go look at the Wikipedia entry for the 2011 occupation of the Wisconsin Capitol Rotunda in a protest by Democrats against Republican Governor Scott Walker, the title at Wikipedia does not say riots. It says 2011 Wisconsin protests, not riots. Democrat union members, on orders of officials of the Democratic Party, stormed the state building in Wisconsin, pushed their way past the Capitol and state police there, and occupied it to block the functioning of the people's business. So why was the occupation of the Wisconsin State Capitol Rotunda a protest, yet Fox News reports that precise act a decade later as a riot? The only difference is the political party. Riots, protests, and occupying Capitol buildings is good when Democrats do it, evil when Republicans do it. At least that's how the news media frames the narrative. Republicans are pretty much a peaceful bunch. One day of occupation of public buildings didn't end our democracy. The senators and representatives in question were only inconvenienced by a day or two and could then return to work as usual. Why is this protest treated differently only because Republicans carried it out? Thomas Jefferson warned that revolutions now and then are a good thing and sometimes necessary. This was a warning to the entitled classes, those who sit in judgment of the taxpayers and workers of this country, taking our obedience for granted. Read our history books. Study the speeches and writings of the Founding Fathers. America was formed at great pain and cost because it was deemed intolerable that Americans had taxation without representation. America's unity was imperiled by the very political party that is gloating that they won it all in the 2020 elections. The Democrats polarized our country needlessly over a nonpartisan virus. Democrats and their news media did everything they could over the past 20 years to drive our country to civil war for totally contrived and artificial reasons. Now that they have driven the patience and politeness of Republican voters to the brink, the question for the Democrats is this: now that you are faced with the civil war you so desired, where you divided and polarized our country as you have these past 20 years, mobilizing everything in Hollywood, the media, and academia to destroy our national unity, is this the fight you really want? Do you really want this fight? I don't think they do. This is a choice by the Democrats to take a step back, stop driving otherwise peaceful Republican voters to the brink. We don't want this war, and neither should you. And that should drive 100% of the policies, rhetoric, and reporting by Democrats and their accomplices in the press who created these artificial and unnecessary divisions in our formerly United States of America. Unite us again without all the lies you used to fraudulently obtain power in 2021, or this will only be the first instance of an America at war with itself. Let us have an America based on unity. In order to have a unified America, it cannot be based on the partisan lies of opportunistic Democrats. For 4 straight years, Democrats and the news media lied every day about Donald Trump and his supporters. If they think that they are going to achieve unity by continuing those lies based on the events of January 6th, think again. This is not how you achieve national unity. This is how you achieve civil war. Let us come together as Americans and unify as Americans and not unify as Biden supporters or Trump supporters, but as simple Americans of the United States of America. Thank you.